Happy Independence Day weekend, everyone. I'm glad to have everybody here on a gorgeous sunny weather day in Portland, Oregon. Today is a special day for me. And before I get into how special it is, I want to make sure that everybody checks out Five Star Guitars in the Portland, Oregon area. In Beaverton, Oregon, they have an incredible selection of guitars. You have repairs, and they also have lessons and instruction. So if you're looking to learn how to play guitar, get a hold of Joff Metz down there at Five Star Guitars and book a lesson with him or the world famous Jennifer Batten or any of their other various teachers. If you don't want to go in, just check out www.fivestarguitars.com. See the selection, book the lessons, book the repairs, and they'll be happy that I send them your way. Okay, folks, it's a holiday weekend, so I'm going to get my next guest out on the water or the tractor or wherever he wants to be. But before we do so, we've got amazing stories from one of my most prized friends on the planet. This gentleman influenced me in ways beyond the stage, taught me how to be a man in a lot of ways, and he's a shining example of a dedicated husband and father, and he is a true rock star in and out of the music business. So one of the most incredible people in the music industry. This is my friend, Bill Wadhams. Thank you for being here, pal.
Wow, Kevin, thank you so much for that stellar introduction. I also want to give a little shout out to Jeff Metz at Five Star Guitars. I just bought a new recording interface from him.
Really?
Yeah, I called him up and I said, I asked him if he had the Universal Audio Apollo Twin X, which he didn't. He went, made a deal with the manufacturer and hooked me up with a really great deal with a new interface with,
really?
I just got, I'm updating my recording system while I'm here quarantined. I thought I've got, I had a very old computer and stuff like that. So I thought now's the time, and Jeff helped me out. So
right on. I love hearing that.
Yeah.
What was that interface consisting of? What did you end up getting?
Well, I'm a fan of Universal Audio plugins. So Universal Audio is famous for making all these great preamps and stuff. And so over the years, I've had like a card that goes into my computer that runs the plugins. And over the years, I've accumulated a library of plugins that I use. One of my favorites is an old chorus ensemble. I can't remember, it was an early Roland chorus ensemble or something, the CE1. And so that's just one of the models that I have in my many plugins. So Universal Audio has an interface called Apollo. God, I'm going to confuse. I also love Apogee interfaces. So I had an Apogee. Now I have a Universal Audio Apollo Twin X. It has 4 DSP farms to run the plugins, and I'm waiting for it to arrive.
Nice. That's cool. Well, I'm glad he was able to help you out. See, it really works, folks. Five Star Guitars right there.
It works.
Boom. Man, okay. So people that haven't met you or don't know you probably just know you as the man behind the Roman helmet in the Obsession video, the man behind Obsession. But the real fans know quite a bit of the catalog, and our close fans know a little bit about your and my experiences on the road, because I'll tell them. We've got a lot of them. But I think if you're cool with it, I would love for you to talk about your story from your early days in New York and the migration to Los Angeles to be a rock star.
Wow. Okay. Well, my story runs in parallel with my brother Tad, who you know, and Tad is a wonderful bass player. Tad and I grew up in Rochester, New York in the 50s, and in the 60s, we picked up a guitar. We were just loving the sounds of the British invasion, and Tad reminded me that we were looking at the cartoons or comic pages of the Sunday paper in 1964 when we saw the Beatles Tonight on the Ed Sullivan Show. And we were just like so many other kids, just blown away by the Beatles, and started emulating them, playing guitar. Tad eventually switched to bass like his hero, Paul McCartney. And we played in many bands together over the years. When I finally moved to Los Angeles, and he moved to Los Angeles, we were in the same band together, and then we were in different bands. And you know how that is, you know, you could be your best friend, your brother, whatever, but different opportunities come up. At one point, he was playing in a club with Lowen and Navarro, some wonderful songwriters who wrote the song We Belong that Pat Benatar sang.
Right.
He was playing with them. Sheryl Crow came in and saw him at a club in Los Angeles playing with Lowen and Navarro, and asked him to be in her touring band. So he was off and running with Sheryl Crow on her first world tour for a year. He co-wrote the song Love Is a Good Thing with her. So anyway, yeah, Tad and I both migrated from back east, Rochester, New York. We also lived in the Washington, D.C. suburbs where we played in bands there. We both ended up in Los Angeles. And for a while, when I first got to Los Angeles, the new wave was hitting. And when I arrived in LA, I was expecting everything to be like sophisticated, like Earth, Wind and Fire, and the Jazz Comet, you know, Jazz Crusaders with Larry Carlton playing guitar. I was really into like jazz pop, and I thought this sophisticated music was where everything was going. Then I got there, and the Knack and Blondie were exploding at the top of the charts, and everything was kind of throwback to the 60s. So I changed my name to Billy Bond.
Right.
And Tad and I had a band called the Billy Bond Band. And we were playing, again, kind of guitar, bass, and drums, kind of 60s influence, rock and roll, and knocking around town. Matter of fact, here in my little home studio, I've dug up my day planners. I've got all these books from this is 1983, 1982.
No way.
Yeah.
You've got the Billy Bond booking, your scheduling and rehearsal dates, and
day by day, it's like, oh, we're playing at the Troubadour tonight. Oh, we're recording in the studio today. Or like, I got a call from a guy who's managing a band called Red Zone. You know, all those things are
you've got that right there.
I got it all in the books. Yeah.
Well,
so
do you remember the day that you got the call from the band booking Red Zone?
You know what? See, now I've told you I've got the date book, and I don't have the date like immediately in my mind, but I think it was something like, you know, April of 1983, maybe.
Okay.
I got a call saying, hey, you know, I manage this band Red Zone, and the band has gone through a shakeup, and they need a guitarist, singer, songwriter to sing with our British-born, English-born girl, Astrid Plain. And I said, you know what? Actually, I've seen that band because I played at a place called Madame Wong's West, and Red Zone was downstairs and I was upstairs with the Billy Bond Band, and I saw them, and they're self-described Martian punk band.
Oh, wow. Stylistically, what was Billy Bond Band like?
You know, I've thought a lot about this lately, just because when I first think about meeting Red Zone, I thought, there's a bunch of kooky people.
Yeah.
Kind of weird. But the Billy Bond Band, on the other hand, was kind of like another, you know, 4 white guys playing guitars, bass, and drums. Nothing particularly outstanding about us. But when I met Red Zone, Astrid Plain is kind of wild. She's got a ponytail sticking out the side of her head. When they played, they dressed in like silver outfits with the guy that I replaced. He built his own LED lights that would be flashing on the, you know, like sort of Star Trek belts and everything. They were wild.
Ahead of the time.
You know, yeah. And so kind of like Ziggy Stardust meets whatever. And And then by the time I met them, now they have a drummer named Frenchie O'Brien was in the Red Zone. The
Rest in
keyboard,
peace.
keyboard player Paul Antonelli and bassist and boyfriend of Astrid Charles they were all pretty stylish. They were into The Cure and all this stuff. And at first glance, I thought, wow, this isn't my tribe. But looking back, I think it was all the contrast between characters that made it somewhat interesting. And record companies are looking for something. They're not looking for the same old thing.
Right. Yeah.
They're looking for something that looks a little unusual.
Especially then, right?
Yeah, especially then. So I met them. I played some of my demos. They liked it, and we started rehearsing.
Any of the demos then make it onto the records with Animotion?
Yeah. The song "Everything's Leading to You" made it on the first record of Animotion. And maybe a song called "Holding You" was something that I'd recorded. The song that Astrid liked the most when I first met her, it was called "All in a Day," and it didn't make it on the record, but when I listen to it now, I think, man, that should have been on there. It even had, our keyboard player, Greg, had played the demo for "All in a Day" with me, and it had this sound that goes, and that was actually in the opening of Obsession. So
right,
same sound, that actual sample was on this song "All in a Day," which Astrid goes, I like that song. So there's a little thread there.
That's, man. Okay. So when you first did the Red Zone, Billy Bond sort of combination, did you keep Red Zone as the name, or did you decide to change the name right then?
I think because Red Zone was really kind of a creation of the previous guitarist, singer, songwriter. So we needed a new name, and Astrid called me up. I was looking through the dictionary and I came across the word animation. I'm thinking, you didn't get very far, Astrid.
God. You have to work on your Astrid impersonation, by the way, too.
I do. But she said, I came across animation, and I thought, what if we change it to Animotion, like it's an emotion that we feel? Or I think when we play, we're very animated. So how about Animotion? And I was like, yeah, sure. I don't know. I didn't know what was going to become of the band. I thought it was clever,
Yeah. Did you feel like there was something special about the band right off the bat, though, that you thought, okay, this is something that I could actually get farther in my career with? Or did you just see it as another step in the process of becoming who you were?
That's a good question, Kevin. But to be honest with you, when I first started playing with them, I thought, this doesn't feel right. I felt like the guys that I'd been playing with, the drummer had gone to the Berklee School of Music. He was a great drummer. Our guitarist, I might have been a teacher at the Guitar Institute, in LA. He also fantastic guitarist. Tad, my brother, fantastic bass player.
Oh my God, yeah.
These guys, like Astrid, this was the first drummer that Astrid had ever played with, Frenchie.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And Frenchie reminded me kind of Keith Moon. He was all over the tom-toms a lot, and not as solid on the groove as that I was used to. So there were subtleties like that I think if you're a musician who's like, working on your thing, like there's an old quote, if the drummer isn't solid, then the band isn't solid, something to that effect. So there were things about the band that initially I didn't feel comfortable with. And I thought about bailing out on the project a number of times. But every time I came to rehearsal and I was going to tell them, you know, guys, it's just not working for me. But I'd get there and they'd go, hey, Bill, we know you had to sell your amp to make rent, and we got you another one that used to be owned by Randy Rhodes.
Oh my
A
God.
little Ampeg that, you know,
Please tell me you still have that.
God bless his soul, his dearly departed Randy Rhodes, his managers or whatever had this amp, and we got it for you. And I'm like,
Wow.
okay, I can't quit today.
Right. Give it a couple of days.
I guess I'm not going to quit today. And then, you know, but what Animotion had that I didn't have in my own group was I didn't have a manager. They also had a lawyer who had connections in the music business, and he was, you know, he was already trying to like look for an opportunity for the group. So, and the manager said, I will pay for demos to record your songs with this band. So there were so many things in the plus column that even though initially the musical situation wasn't gelling the way I perhaps would have liked, there was always something sort of pulling me forward.
Interesting. I mean, it really is a relationship. You know, you think about dating someone or courting someone and having sort of red flags early on. Something tells you maybe this isn't the right place, but for some other reason, whether it's the sex or the, you know, whatever, the other experiences, something keeps you there, and there's got to be a reason for it, right? It's the heart or the head telling you something, you know, so.
It wasn't the sex.
I'm using the metaphor. I think, you know, I remember hearing that Mark Zonder was playing drums with that band at one point, and was that obviously before Frenchie?
I never heard that.
Mark, when I first met Astrid, she had told me about Mark Zonder being in Red Zone at one point, and he's this incredible prog drummer. He played with a band called Fate's Warning, and he's a really great studio guy, kind of like your Mike Mangini, you know, connection that you had later on. But I thought that was a weird pairing for a band that was kind of like spacey pop, you know. But so with that ensemble, then, so it's you, Greg, Charles, Astrid, and no Don yet at this point. Is that right?
Don, and it was actually Paul and not Greg.
Oh, right. That's right. Yeah. Okay.
Paul and not Greg.
Paul Antonelli.
And, and you know, it's amazing. Astrid was a real ball buster about rehearsing. She just was like, we have to rehearse 3 or 4 times a week. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, really?
And you're working a day job too, right?
Yeah, I was working a day job, and she was always just pushing. And you know, she was determined to be a star. I didn't even have that. I had a want to make it in music like desire, aspire to, you know, she wanted to be a star, you know, she was like working for that. And so that all, you know, there were certain elements of the chemistry of that group, her being so like, let's do it, you know, that really pulled us forward, you know.
Mother hen. That's I saw it many times over in different ways, you know.
Right.
But okay, so you know, you talked about the manager and the lawyer that was helping sort of manage contacts and get something happening. You changed the band name to Animotion, put together the songs for the first record. And I'm sorry to go chronologically this way, but it's interesting for me, and I think for other people that don't know, that process of getting the record deal, putting out the record, the development of the single, how Obsession came in there. So you want to talk a little bit about getting the record together, what happened at the very end, how they started marketing the record, and some of the stuff that's out of your control, right? Because a lot of people think, oh, we're all for one, one for all. We're going to go in, put songs on the record that we want, and we're going to release it, and we're going to be big stars, and we get to run the show. But that's not always the way it goes, right?
Not always the way it goes. And especially with a band that, I don't know, a lot of us didn't know what we could ask for or not ask for, or, you know, so in our case, we had we were performing in clubs around town. We were trying to get our demo tape out there. Somehow or another, our music lawyer got a very famous A&R guy, legendary record man named Russ Regan, to come see us in our rehearsal studio. Now, Russ Regan signed, he worked with Neil Diamond, he worked with the Beach Boys, he signed Elton John to his recording contract. He signed Kiss to their recording contract, so this guy is huge and an absolute sweetheart. And so he came to our rehearsal. We played like 4 or 5 songs. And then he said, hey guys, come on, sit down with me here. Sit down on these funky rehearsal studio couches and stuff. And he said, look, I'm looking at you guys and I'm thinking, he sings, she sings, they sing together. This could be like a Fleetwood Mac for the 80s. And okay, wow. So he had a vision for the band, and he signed us. And then he pretty much said, I want to introduce you to your producer, John Ryan. Now, I didn't know at that time that you can lobby to choose your own producer. Say, hey, we'd like to kind of work with a producer who's done some records that we really like. We didn't, I don't know. I didn't know. I should have known. I've been reading Rolling Stone and all these magazines trying to understand how all this stuff works, but I didn't know that you could kind of like fight for your own producer, whatever. So we were assigned to a guy named John Ryan. And so at first it was okay working with John. He listened to my songs and we seemed to be on the same page. And we went into Sound City recording studio where Tom Petty, a lot of rock records have been recorded. And he said to Astrid and Charles in particular in Animotion, they really liked Human League and Cure and some other groups. And they were kind of pushing, let's do something kind of like that British, pop stuff that's happening over there. And John Ryan said, no, this is going to be a rock record, rock music. It's going to be released on KLOS in Los Angeles, which is, I don't know what the equivalent is up here, but rock. This is rock. And my songs were kind of rock. I was, besides being influenced by the Beatles and the Stones, Led Zeppelin, I really loved the Police. And so I was kind of I also studied classical guitar like Andy Summers. So I was kind of going in this big open sound that I wanted to get. And so then we recorded 5 of my songs, and then John Ryan went off to England. And when he returned, he called me up and he said, hey, Bill, have you heard of Frankie Goes to Hollywood? And I said, yeah. Relax? Yeah. Well, I've got a song that a publisher presented to me called Obsession, and I think it could be a hit for you guys. I'm going to play it for you on the phone.
Oh.
So at the time, I was working as a graphic artist at a little ad agency on Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles, and I put the phone to my head, and one of my friends in the agency was sitting there kind of giggling, and I said, he says this is going to be a hit for us. So he starts playing it, and I hear Michael DeBar's voice.
Okay.
And he's saying, not singing, he's saying, you are an obsession. I cannot sleep. I am a possession, unopened at your feet. And I said to my friend, he's telling me this is going to be a hit for us. I'm not even singing. I'd be talking on this song. What the? And so anyway, he said, what do you think? I said, yeah, I don't know, really. That's cool, but do we have to do we have to record it? I mean, I'd rather do my own songs. I'd rather sing this song. Oh, I think this is going to be really good for you, whatever. And so we went into the studio and I said, John, could I at least sing the song? Let me try singing the verses. And he goes, well, I want you to talk first. I want you to do the talking first. So I actually had to go through you are an obsession. I cannot sleep. And then I sang it. when the record came out, both the singing and the talking are there.
Right. Yeah.
I would have liked Michael's voice on the talking part, you know, if they could have kept that, could have brought him in, because his voice sounds so cool.
Well, hey, we just happen to have hey, no, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Yeah. Michael is a wonderful actor, as some of you know, and he was the bad guy in MacGyver for a number of years. He's even made a bit of a comeback with that recently. So at any rate, I was not too thrilled with Obsession when we first recorded. And from what I hear, Michael and Holly were not too thrilled with our version when they first heard it. They didn't like the horns. Bop, 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 bop. They didn't like that.
Really?
They thought we kind of messed up the song, you know. So at any rate.
What about the addition of the female vocal? Like
you know, I believe that Holly Knight, who is the co-writer, I believe that Holly was singing. She was singing on the choruses.
Okay.
So, who do you want? She was singing along on the choruses. So that was there. So,
but then the response thing, was that your idea to come in with you sing your parts and then maybe have a call and response with the female counterpart?
No, we sang unison in the chorus, and otherwise, I guess, no, you're right. I guess that it was like, we're going to have you sing the first part, Bill. We're going to have her sing the second part. And, you know, yeah, it was kind of, you know.
So it was really dictated. And,
oh, yeah.
You know, it's crazy to think about that. And like I said, some people don't realize that there's not a lot of flexibility when you go in the studio and you kind of pushed and pulled. You got a little bit of what you wanted, but then is that the first single that gets released?
Yeah.
Okay. And like a bullet races up the charts.
Well, but I should say there was a lag. So we finished recording the album, and the album was released in 1984, maybe April or May 1984. And Obsession was getting some play at KROQ in Los Angeles, but nowhere else.
Really?
So yeah, nowhere else. In 1984, by the end of the year, we were popular on one radio station, KROQ. And we did shoot a video for Obsession in 1984. And Richard Blade had a video show called Video One.
Okay.
And he put Obsession on Video One. As a matter of fact, because the record wasn't blowing up, I had quit my job as a graphic designer. I went back to painting houses.
Wow.
And one day I was painting this house for a little old lady in the valley, and I heard Obsession coming from her living room, and I had never seen the video.
Really?
On TV.
Oh,
I'd
okay.
never seen it on TV. I'd seen in a manager's office or whatever. Never seen it on TV. But Richard Blade was putting it on TV, and it was playing on the TV inside of a house I was painting. So I knocked on the door. I said, "Excuse me, ma'am. Do you mind if I come in your living room? I think I'm on your TV." And she let me in, and she said, "If you're on TV, what are you doing painting my house?"
That was the end of the day job?
No. So I still painted houses for another, I don't know, 9 months or something, because it wasn't until 1985, in about January or February, when the top station in Los Angeles had a battle of the bands for unknown bands.
Okay.
So they played Obsession against someone else's new up-and-coming song, and people called in and said, "Okay, we like Obsession." And they kept putting us up against another band, and 5 nights in a row we won.
Wow.
So they said, "Okay, we're going to add this to the playlist." So now we were on this big station it's what they call a P1 station. In other words, one of the largest stations in the country. And we are flying into the top 10, and other stations around the country started to take notice, thanks in part to the team at Polygram, and especially Gene Johnson, who was really pushing and marketing the band, and she helped to get it out. And now it started to go top 10 in Miami, top 10 in Seattle. It started to explode. And then once it got on the charts, the record company said, "Get that band on the road."
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask, were you actually doing any shows to supplement the radio play?
We were just doing local shows until I think once we hit the pop chart, and it hit like at about 70, then it went to 60, and maybe, as soon as it leaped a couple, points, the record company said, "Put them on the road."
Yeah.
So we did our first, we did a West Coast tour from San Diego to Vancouver, BC, in a Winnebago.
Nice.
Yeah, the Winnebago and the Motel 6 tour.
Was it just you guys, or was it with other bands?
It was us with like local bands open.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, and I think when we got to Portland here, it was the Crazy Eights opening for us. And I'm so glad it was, because the Crazy Eights were huge in Portland. So we were at Starry Nights, which is now Roseland, and it was packed. And it was a great night with the Crazy Eights. So at any rate, after that, now we're like 70, 60, 50, 40. They put us in a bus, and now we're in an actual tour bus, but a funky one. It had an eagle landing on the side, and it actually said Freebird.
Oh no.
Freebird.
Oh, God.
It was a very old Freebird bus. And
wood paneling.
Yeah, and we were going from like Virginia down to Florida, and the air conditioner goes out, and the bus driver got us dried ice he got us a bucket of dried ice to try to cool us off. I'll tell you one other thing. We pull into playing at a venue, and the marquee said, "Salad bar, Animotion."
Oh no. So Spinal Tap. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh.
But that was our next warm-up tour, and then we were booked to open up for Depeche Mode at Irvine Meadows Amphitheater, 17,000 people. That was take your breath away kind of moment.
Yeah.
Walking out on that stage, and we played a few shows with Depeche Mode, and then we were paired up with Howard Jones to do a North American tour, and that was the real highlight of the year. And it was while we were on that tour. Actually, I think it was the Winnebago tour when we got into the top 10.
Really?
So I'll never forget, we were like 17 with a bullet, and all along the way, I'd been kind of grinding my teeth a little bit, like, crap, we're gonna have a hit with a song I didn't write, and sure enough, there were reviews that said, if you like Obsession, you might not like the rest of the album that Bill wrote.
Wow.
Because it doesn't sound like Obsession. But by the time we had a bullet, we were approaching the top 10. I said, I don't care where this is coming from. This is going to change my life. And it did.
And let me ask about the combination of video at that point. So you mentioned that video one that Richard Blade had, and he put the video on, but you were in the heart of the real heyday of MTV, blowing bands up, right? So this is early 85. So was MTV, was it in circulation as the radio, as it's climbing the charts, or did it really pick up after you hit that top 10?
I think when we got into the top 10, MTV grabbed it and put it in their power rotation.
I remember every hour, man.
Once every hour.
Yeah.
So we went from being obscure nobody to every time I went out to the grocery store being recognized, and they didn't know it's Bill Wadhams from Animotion. They were like, "Hey, you're that guy. You're that guy from that song,
Right.
wearing that helmet, right?"
Right.
I'm like, "Yeah." So, but it was MTV started in '81, I think,
Yeah.
and so it was still fairly new. Everybody was still watching it, and also we would fly to New York and be on MTV with Martha Quinn and Alan Hunter and
That's right.
they would bring us in when they were doing, at one point they were doing a monkeys week, monkeys.
That's
and
right.
and if you search Bill Wadhams Animotion or Bill Animotion monkeys, you'll see my little
I just happen to have it right here. You mind if I put that on?
Go ahead.
All right, let's share this a little bit. Here we go. I got it. Pardon me for a sec while I.
No problem.
There we go. All right. I love it, man. So that is good, buddy. You well, yeah, let me kill my share here. I hadn't planned on doing that, but I forgot about that one. There was also the Vidal Sassoon ads that were out there.
Right. Yeah.
Had you at that point you look timid on camera, but I've seen you really in some extensive musical theater. So when did the bug to be comfortable on stage and on camera sort of bite you?
I don't know. I really don't feel like I went through a timid stage. I kind of I was happy to be on stage just like from the beginning. Yeah, so I don't know.
Well, when I see that Monkeys promo, I rarely see Bill Wadhams in a mode like that. You look like you're trying not to cam it up and ham it up too much.
And I was trying to be tongue in cheek there. I was going like, hey, we're all monkeys, people said, and I say some bullshit about, how, if you really intend to look like, so I don't know. It's a silly quote, but no, I was pretty comfortable. There were times when we had one interviewer that really tried to embarrass me and Don, tried to embarrass us and Astrid and in New York City. And we had just played at Disneyland, and she actually brought to the interview some Mickey Mouse hats. And she was like, "We're going to take some pictures. I want you to wear these Mickey Mouse hats." And I was like, no. And she's like, "Come on." And I don't remember if Astrid said, "Okay," but I was like, I don't know if we should do this. But we ended up putting on the Mickey Mouse hats and standing with her. And then it showed up in like Billboard magazine. And one of my friends was like, "Hey, wow, good for you. Good for you for like being Mickey Mouse." Oh my
buddy.
God. I was so embarrassed. I've actually got because I was like doing some cassettes, and I've got that interview. And she was asking us questions like, "So when you're out on the road, do you cheat on your wives?"
Oh,
or like,
good God. Yeah, we're not going anywhere.
How's that go? How's that going for you? Well, there must be times when and we're like, wow. So, but she was, she was just, she was brutal. Anyway, side note.
No, those interviews happen. What we did the first 80s cruise with Flock, that question was asked to Mike by a prominent MTV VJ.
Yeah.
And he answered it openly, kind of.
Yeah.
It was, "Wow, you've been married several times. It must be really tough to be out here on the road with all these adoring fans throwing themselves at you in bikinis."
Yeah.
And he's probably going to hate me for saying it, but he said,
No, no, no.
"Ah,
Well, it's a change of subject.
yeah, no, I'm going to change the subject."
Yeah.
Anyway, I jumped ahead a little bit with the thought about you on video, but we didn't talk about Don's entry to the band. So
Yeah.
Don Kirkpatrick, when did he show up in the band?
Well, Don was playing with my brother Tad. So that's how I met Don.
Okay.
Don was playing. There is an artist named Randy Sharp. And Randy Sharp is a very accomplished songwriter. And he put together a band in Los Angeles that Tad and Don were both in. And I heard Don play, and I just loved his playing. He was like,
Jeez.
he plays like I wish I could, play. And so when we were on the first half of the album, I don't know where Don was, but we had a wonderful guitarist named Steve Fryette, and Steve Fryette went on to create VHT amps. He's a amp designer and
Okay.
VHT amps, and then he sold VHT, and now it's Fryette amps, very wonderful exclusive amps. He played on the half of the album, and then Don came in and played on the other half of the album, and I asked him to join the band. So he came in out of like friend of Tad's.
Okay. I know that we're on a timeline, so I want to kind of speed things up a little bit, but I need to say, first of all, my first experience with Tad, with Don, we did the first gig together in Fresno at the Starline. We had a sound check, and I thought this was going to be a one-off gig. It happened to be on my 30th birthday, I believe. And we did the sound check, and I remember him warming up. He had a couple of guitars there. Both guitars had the greatest tone. His technique was insane. We're playing this little bar that holds like 400 people, maybe, right? And I remember getting goosebumps hearing him warm up. I thought, this guy is incredible. And I don't think I realized at that point that he was with Rod Stewart, and he'd been in Rod's band for a while. And afterwards, he came up to you and he said, "Hey, man, who's the drummer guy?" You said, "Oh, yeah, he's this rock drummer. He's a heavy metal drummer from Montana." And he's like, "This works out really well." I remember being so amazed at the compliment that came from him. But that night that we played was so fun. Somewhere out there, I've got, mini DV tapes of that show. I remember it had this slinky feel to it. It really was like it had a good lilt and bounce. One of the greatest nights of my life, man. I'll never forget that first time playing with him.
It was really, really fun.
He is, and you've mentioned this before, but he is the difference in most bands that are out there from that era, because it was this band that had great, real hooky pop songs, but then the guitar part was like this just driving hard rock guitar shredding solo kind of thing that didn't sound like metal. It just sounded in your face. It sounded like it's like you took Jimmy Page and added it to a pop band. I remember just thinking, this is so unique and so different. And one other caveat, although he wasn't in the band, but one of the greatest bass players I've ever played with in my life is your brother, Tad Wadhams. He made my drumming feel.
All of a sudden, I can't hear your voice. I don't know if you can hear me. Now we're a little bit frozen on this end, but
I froze up on you for a second. I'm sorry.
There we go. No problem.
Yeah. I was just raving about Tad Wadhams.
Yeah.
But so let's fast forward just a tiny bit, because we talked about Don's inclusion. The record took off and video starts taking off on MTV. The band is doing well. You're touring. If you want to talk a little bit about sort of the next phase of the band, or at least most fans of the band know that there was a phase of Animotion. Then there was a sort of chapter 2 that kind of was like a little tiny speed bump, and then a big break before the band reunited. Right. And I want to get to that in a consolidated form, because there's so much about your musical life outside of Animotion that is really fascinating to me. So maybe talk a little bit about, how things wound down with that phase of Animotion, and then let's talk about your new evolution.
Okay, sure. I have to stop for just 1 second and say hello to Kayvon Zahedi.
Oh, yeah.
Who is watching us from Canada. Hello, Kayvon. he is one of our good friends and a super fan of music and sports. He's
That's
a wonderful,
right.
wonderful guy. All right. What was the question?
The question is, so the
Yeah.
evolution,
Oh, yeah.
the way that Animotion wound down.
I gotcha. Okay. So we did 2 albums with Animotion, and then we were working on a 3rd album when the guy who signed us, that wonderful, legendary guy, departed the record label. The guy that replaced him was not in our corner.
Yeah.
And we struggled with him, especially me as a songwriter. He was not, he didn't like my songs, and he didn't like we wanted to work with a producer named Rupert Hine, who just recently passed away, rest in peace. But he had worked with Thompson Twins, Howard Jones, Tina Turner, a bunch of people. He agreed to work on our 3rd record with us, and within our budget, we would be recording in his studio and outside of London. It was like a dream, and this guy just killed that idea. He literally told us, I want you guys to sound more like Heart and Starship. And Heart and Starship at that time had begun, their songs were starting to be written by outside writers.
Right. Desmond Child writing for both of them, I think.
Yeah. And, so I was fighting that evolution and fighting it. And so we brought in some new managers who were hard asses, who we thought we can sort of push our way through here. But the managers actually had their own agenda. They were managing Richard Marx. Richard Marx's fiance or girlfriend was Cynthia Rhodes. And the managers said to us, brought me and Greg and Don into a meeting and said, you guys, we think you should replace Astrid. And at that point, Astrid and I had been a bit at odds creatively. And I was worried that the band was going to go the way of the dodo bird. And I was trying to, in my mind, save the band. And they told me, this manager said, we feel if we can replace Astrid and we'll do this and do that, that the record company will get excited about the band again and we move forward. So we Astrid and Charles went their way. They're a couple and eventually married. And Don and Greg and I went this other way, and the managers put us together with Cynthia Rhodes. And I recorded some songs with Cynthia. We actually got promo photos done. I was feeling all right about it, but then I couldn't get this A&R guy to see eye to eye with me in anything I wanted to do. Now, I let my own ego get in the way. Through that whole period, I was thinking, trying to figure out how I really want it to be. I'm trying to manipulate the thing. I didn't make the smartest moves. And the fact that we had allowed them to kind of divide us weakened us.
Right.
So it was a divide and conquer situation. But while we were working with Cynthia, then I went to New York City and met with the head of the A&R department. And I said, listen, I tried to him I've got a briefcase full of songs written by people like someone who works with the Pet Shop Boys and this. If you don't like what I'm writing, at least go with how I think Animotion should sound. And he said to me, Bill, Scoro is the name of this guy. Scoro is out there. He's new at the job. I got to give him enough rope. And I'm thinking, enough rope to what? Fucking hang himself?
Right.
Let him hang himself, not the band.
Right.
Let him. But So I go at odds with him. And then home front, I was married to a woman that said, if you then, I'm going to leave you. The last for me. So I meet in New York and I quit the band. And that was not the smartest thing I've ever done, to walk away from a recording contract and a band that was, you know, still working. So after I left, they moved Paul Engelman in. So Cynthia is now working with Greg and Don, Paul Engelman and Cynthia, and they produced a record that had no songs by anyone in the band.
Oh, wow.
But because those managers are who they are, and they managed to get the song Room to Move into the top 10. And so Animotion had another top 10 hit with Room to Move, I guess in 86 or 87. And then after that, the band collapsed. I don't know exactly what it was, but they were preparing to tour. They were about to tour with Never Gonna Give You Up. But, you know, who's that? I should know the guy's name. Who sings that song, Never Gonna Give You Up?
Yeah, Rick Astley.
Rick Astley.
Yeah.
Right. It was going to be Rick Astley and Animotion on tour.
Oh my
For
God.
some reason, the deal fell apart. And then Cynthia said, I'm going to go off and raise a family now. Goodbye.
Wow.
And that was the end of Animotion 2. I'll just cut forward to then 12 years after that. I called Astrid and Charles, said, would you like to sit down and debrief? You know, would you like to talk through things? And they're like, okay. So we sat down, we forgave each other, we laughed, we cried, and we agreed that if an opportunity came up, that we would look at the possibility of playing together.
So there wasn't a plan at that point. Sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, this is more of a breaking bread. This is an olive branch saying, hey, you know what, let's get past what we had and at least be on the same page about where our hearts are. Right. Was Jim Blair, did he go along with you on the Cynthia Rhodes side as well?
Yes. Yeah.
So he was on drums.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know that the producers brought him in for that record. I don't think he was on that record.
Okay.
You know?
Sorry. I can't leave the drummer out, man. I had to know, you know? So,
yeah.
So that meeting though went well. Everybody was their animosity was kind of appeased and you were able to.
You know, and I think because they said to me, we know that you had a tough time with the band because you're the writer, you have a vision. They had agreed to let me be the musical director of the band. And, but they knew that they fought me. Everybody in the band fought me about certain things. And so after Animotion, they had a band and they were the musical directors. And they said, wow, what a nightmare. We had nothing but trouble. It was so hard getting people just to, you know, implement our vision without saying, yeah, well, so they you know, they said, we understand why you kind of like did this. And so we forgive you. And I was like, you know, okay, cool. You know, and that's really, I just wanted to like, you know, ask for their forgiveness for like, sort of like bumping them.
You know, over the years, it's funny, after all the time that we played together, the manager sort of role that you had to wear was thankless. You know, you did the booking, you did the arrangements of the transportation, you did all of the promotional materials that wasn't handled by the agencies that we're playing with. And a lot of times you'd drive the vehicles, you know, you'd rent the cars and you'd arrange arrange flights and you were the music director, you know, you're putting together arrangements, you're getting the click track together and the backing tracks. And so many people don't get to see that, right? From behind the scenes, they think that you show up there as the singer and you're just, you know, collecting checks and signing autographs, you know? So I really hope that you know how appreciative we all were. I mean, myself, I can speak for myself and tell you, and I hope that you knew all the way along that it never would have happened without your organization and your blood, sweat, and tears. I know how much you put into it. I'll never forget you just like stacking credit cards, getting rental vehicles, having rental vehicles break, and trying to juggle, and it got exponentially more challenging as the tour dates started adding up, and so you'd have that stuff goes on, so folks, when you're out there and you're buying your tickets, it's really great if you can support those bands by buying their merchandise and hanging out with them and letting them know how much you appreciate the fact that they're still out there slugging it away, even at a young, spry age that you are. You're about 47, something like that, right?
Yeah, I know,
But
about 20 years older than that. But hey, I absolutely want to take a minute and say that from the moment I met you, I was so happy to have you on the team of Animotion. I think even before I heard your drumming, we just went out and had a beer.
yeah,
I know that you're not drinking anymore, but back when you had a beer with me, we just hit it off as friends. We're both fathers of sons. We love music. We love Portland and traveling, and we've just had a wonderful time for years and years. We still are when we get to play on the same bill.
right.
You're always someone that I can like meet in the back hall and say, oh my God, this is this is going on, the flight got delayed and here we are. And then we've always you've been a confidant, a friend, and of course a kick-ass drummer that it was always really fun to have you driving the band from the drum throne. So
Thank you.
I
Thank you,
want to
man.
thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, buddy. I mean, they're, amazing memories of my life. And I will say, that they're all sort of bookmarked little chapters in my life where I look back so fondly and I have amazing memories. I'll tell you just a couple of quick.
Yeah.
The first magical memory that I remember having with you, um, it was just you and me. We went up there and you put together an opportunity for us to play in Massey Hall in Toronto for that charity event, historical venue. We got there early. They had a load in sound check time for us, but you and I went in early to check out this gorgeous venue. And I remember you walking over to the piano. There's a grand piano sitting on that stage and playing that piano. And it was just us in that venue. And the resonance of the piano, I get goosebumps thinking about it, man. It really was a magical energy that you and I got to share, just the two of us on that stage. And I knew how much that gig meant to you and to me too. It was a really special thing. Met amazing friends at that point, and
Chris was there. That's one of the first. I think that was the first gig my son Chris played with us.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. There are so many. I mean, I could give countless fun gigs. I could talk about silly things, when things broke down on stage and we had a good laugh about that. But I can share that for another time. What I would love to do is talk about this additional chapter of Bill Wadhams' life that surprised and inspired me. All the while that we were doing these tours, at the end, you were working on a musical. And you had been, I know that we went to see some off-Broadway productions when we were in New York. And I knew that that was a big thing for you to get theater production together. And I knew that you were working on it, but I never really got to see any of that tangible stuff until I saw you perform in Next to Normal. When you did that, your role in that was phenomenal. And I remember pinching myself thinking, who is this guy? There was a whole other life that Bill Wadhams had. So did you do formal training for that? I mean, where did that come from?
That's Yeah. Um, well, I'd always been interested in acting, and I studied acting in Los Angeles, but I decided to just pretty much stick with music, recording albums, touring, because I noticed that I started to go on auditions in Los Angeles and realized I can't do this half-ass. I'm either all in or all, and so I was already in music and a father, and having to often have like a day job or something, paint houses or do graphic design to, so I didn't really pursue it. When I came up here to Portland, I took some acting lessons again, and I started doing some TV commercials just for make a few extra bucks and just for fun. I was in a small movie up here. I forget what the name of it was, sorry, but
That's not the one with Kevin Rankin, right?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. There was you get to work with the actor Kevin Rankin, and I was like, I gotta meet this guy.
Oh my gosh, no, I don't know. But at any rate,
Okay.
to fast forward, I met a musical director here in Portland who is a musical director for musical theater. His name is Rick Lewis. Wonderful guy who has worked on Broadway, and he's got a huge resume. He's a wonderful guy. He called me up and said, would you be interested in this musical, Next to Normal, singing in this musical? And I said, yeah, I'm interested. What have I got to do? He said, well, we know what your voice is like, but you have to give us you have to put an audition on tape because the director's out of town right now, to do a monologue on tape. So I went to Powell's and I picked up a book of monologues. I found a monologue, and I worked it up in this little room here, and I sent it to the director. 2 days later, I was booked to be in Next to Normal, the West Coast premiere of it, I guess, at the Artist Rep Theater, with a very accomplished singer, a friend, yeah, I was booked. 2 weeks later, we were rehearsing, and then we did 42 shows.
42. Wow.
42 shows, and it was a phenomenal experience. And at one point, someone said to me, "Hey, where you been? Welcome to the community." And I thought, "Wow, I'm in. I'm solid." And then I found that there really weren't that many roles here in town for a 50-something-year-old man. So I went out for some dramatic roles. Over the course of a year, I auditioned for a number of plays. And
Really?
yeah.
Which do you want to talk about any that you auditioned for that maybe didn't?
I can't even remember what the names of them were, but the first one was called Lost Boy. And it was a debut play written by a woman named Sue Mock.
Okay.
And I loved the part. It was based on a historical event of a kidnapping in the 1800s, and a little boy had been kidnapped, and it really happened, and it became a huge tabloid thing. And at one point, P.T. Barnum tried to get into it, and
Wow.
Anyway, I loved this idea, and I almost got the part, and then I didn't get the part, but I met the writer named Sue Mock. And then later on, when I got interested in writing a musical, I came to Sue, who's a playwright, and I said, "Would you be interested in working with me on a musical?" And she said, "I've always wanted to write a musical." So we were off and running, and it took us about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years before we really got it together. We had a couple ideas, and then she came up with the idea to base our play on a historical event that happened in Portland in 1970, around the Vietnam War era. And it's called Vortex One. And so we worked on Vortex One for maybe 2 years. And then we had a premiere performance workshop of it, not fully staged, but we did the whole thing, 18 songs, 12 actors, 5-piece band. And now we are looking to get it into a theater. Our best idea right now is that we may do a collaboration with Portland State University and Artist Rep Theater if they're willing to participate in that with us. And we will get some of the Portland State students to play the young activists in the play. And then we'll use some professionals to play some of the older parts, and we'll put it on at Portland State in Lincoln Hall. Would be a great idea.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
Yes, I went to that first reading. That was a phenomenal presentation. I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea that you had done all the scoring and the musical arrangements. And it was, again, it was one of those things that my eyes were open to your talents and capabilities. I know how much you've worked at this. And so for me, it was inspiring to see that you can put your nose to the grindstone. You've always been one to adapt. Right now with the pandemic happening, if you don't have the ability to sort of adapt and shift and change gears in order to pay the bills or to save yourself from sort of emotional trauma, this is a tough time emotionally for a lot of people. You've had this from the beginning. I'm guessing since 17, you're transporting, your journey from Rochester to back getting to LA. It's great that your kids get to see that sense of adventure and initiative and tenacity. And your beautiful wife, Kate. My God, I absolutely love your wife. I love your whole family. They really feel like family to me. But
thank you, Kevin.
They're fortunate, that they have a man like you in place that can show them that when times are thin, times are tough, then you buckle up, now you buckle down and make it happen. So I think, I guess if I had a hope and a goal, if I was a financier or a philanthropist, I'd throw some money at Vortex One, see if I could get you guys on a circulation, because that production needs to be seen by a lot of people.
Thank you.
The venues here need it. So hopefully we can get venues back together so that we can do some sort of organized, presentations.
I've got a website started at vortex1musical.com.
Okay.
Vortex, the number one, vortex1musical.com. There's a few pictures and one little video compilation there. So
cool. Okay. I'll make sure that I have a link to that. I'll archive this. I'll put it on a little YouTube clip. Yeah. Anybody watching this, please go to the YouTube channel, All Access Live with Kevin Rankin.
Yeah.
Subscribe to it, because when I archive this, I'll have other things like links to Bill's production. And you've got a personal website as well, right?
Yeah, just billwadhams.com. Yeah.
Boom. Easy. I am excited for things to change so that we can get Animotion back on the road. Hopefully Vortex One can take off as well. And do you have anything else in the hopper right now for your own production?
Well, I want to just take a quick second and say, while I was talking about Next to Normal, I had a brain bubble for a second. I couldn't remember Susanna Mars' name. I was about to say I got a chance to sing with one of the most wonderful singers in Portland, Susanna Mars. And that was fantastic. The whole cast was fantastic, but I just wanted to shout out to Susanna.
She was amazing. Is there a recording of that, by the way? Do you have a recording of that show?
I have a bootleg. You're not allowed to record.
Okay, right.
So, I think at one point I put my iPhone on on a piece of wood or something, and so I recorded a little something, but it's not out there in the world. No. Don't
distribute it, but maybe I'll come over. We'll have another wide stock, and you can put it up on the big screen.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. That's one special thing that I will maybe close here with. And Bill has had an annual event every year in the backyard that started off as a small backyard picnic concert called Wadstock. And I think I was there maybe the second year. I think that's right, when I joined the band. I think, if I remember right. But over the years, you had so many bands that it came through there that went on to do huge things. Right? Didn't you have like Imagine Dragons or
Silver Sun Pickups?
Oh, Silver Sun Pickups. That's right. Yeah.
In the backyard.
Everybody that associated with your kids.
Jennifer Batten,
Yeah.
Eddie Martinez,
Yeah.
wonderful guitarist.
Amen. Yeah, man. That's another thing too. I never would have gotten to discover the magic of Eddie Martinez had it not been for you bringing him in on the Hit Me Baby One More Time show that we did.
Right.
But like Don, he's one of those people that he strums a guitar and the tone will make you weep. It's incredible. It's unbelievable. I don't know how they do that, but I love him. So
I'd like to play with Eddie as much as possible. It's so funny. I had him, I begged him to come on an Animotion gig. I finally got him to an Animotion gig, and it turned out to be like some big show at a car dealership, right?
With hay bales.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. We weren't sure what it was. We got there, and it's a big promotional thing at a car dealership, and the audience is sitting on hay bales, and like Eddie looked at me like, seriously?
Yeah, he thought that, but he's a decent man.
Oh my God, yeah.
He played it like a pro. He just went through it, and like, Bill, we had so many gigs like that, so many great laughs, man. And I feel like I'm just blessed to have had those experiences with you, buddy.
Likewise.
Well, we'll be doing them again. It just might be, 2021, So please, give Kate a squeeze for me and your boys and Nat and Will when you see him. I haven't seen Will in forever, but you've got a great collection of children, and they're all wonderful in their own right.
Thank you.
And so, well, let's stay in touch. You let me know how things look with Vortex One. I'll get these linked up there. And for anybody out there wanting to see Bill Wadhams, make sure you go to billwadhams.com or vortex1music.com. Is that right?
Vortex One Musical.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. I'll get it linked up. So check out my Facebook or my YouTube channel and subscribe to it, and I'll make sure you get the links. Bill Wadhams, I love you. I really appreciate
Kevin,
being here.
and good luck with your continued success with your Is this a podcast?
Or something like that.
Podcast,
I don't even know.
YouTube channel, exploration. Yeah. It's an exploration.
They're just conversations that I'm having with my buds, So I've got some good ones coming up. You'll appreciate. Kenny Aronoff is coming up here shortly, so it'll be a good hang. But awesome. Yeah, man, my love to your family. Thank you for taking the time,
and to your family as well.
Have a wonderful Independence Day weekend.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, buddy. Talk to you later.
Heavy metal.
Love you, pal. Take care.
Okay. See ya.